Let's learn to use the abacus the Japanese way. An abacus, which is called Soroban in Japanese, has a horizontal bar running across the whole board. The bar divides the board into two sections, the upper half and the lower half. The beads that touch this bar assume their value. The beads on the lower half of the board are called one beads. As the name suggests, one bead gets a value of 1 when it is moved up towards the bar, and loses its value when it's moved back down to its former position. The beads on the upper half of the soroban are called 5 beads, and each 5 bead can represent a value of 5. 5 bead gets its value when it is moved down to the bar, and loses its value when it is moved back up. Since the soroban uses a decimal system, the first rod to the left of a given rod is the tens rod. The second is the hundreds rod. One can choose a rod he or she feels like as the ones rod, which is also called the unit rod. For convenience, the bar is marked with a unit point at every third rod. Therefore, one should typically choose a rod with the marking point as its unit rod, which makes it easier to remember the digits during calculation. When learning to use the soroban, it is important to be able to manipulate the beads with the right fingers. It's essential to use the right fingers in soroban calculation for speed and efficiency. Admittedly, it's time-consuming and requires some practice for a beginner, but as we will see, the rules regarding the beads manipulation are simple and straightforward. We use only 2 fingers of the right hand, the thumb and the index finger. The thumb is used to push the 1 beads up towards the bar, which makes the 1 bead assume its value. The thumb being the first finger, we will use a red dot to indicate the thumb moving the 1 bead upwards. All the beads can be moved downwards using the index finger. For the 1 bead, moving it down means removing its value. For the 5 bead, when it's moved downwards, this means it assumes its value. Let's use 2 dots to represent the index finger moving the beads downwards. The index finger is also used for pushing the 5 bead upwards. This makes the 5 bead lose its value. In order to move the 5 bead up, we need to push the bead with the fingernail of our index finger. So let's mark the fingering with 2 yellow squares for index finger pushing the 5 bead upwards. To recap, use the thumb to move the 1 bead up. Use the index finger to move both the 1 bead and the 5 bead down, and the same index finger to move the 5 bead up. Finally, for setting and removing the values representing 6 to 9, we need to use both our thumb and the index fingers. But these are done in different ways. Setting the value 6 to 9, we push the 5 bead down with the index and the 1 bead up with the thumb simultaneously. But when removing the value, we first move down the 1 bead with the index finger, and then move up the 5 bead with the same index finger in rapid succession. Let's look at the bead manipulation in action by counting the numbers. Before using the soroban, make sure that all the beads are in the neutral position, representing 0. This is done by moving up all the 5 beads and moving down all the 1 beads, so that no beads are touching the bar. Counting from 1 to 4 is straightforward, as we just keep on adding 1 bead. We will use our thumb for 1, 2, 3, and 4. Try to glide the 1 beads up with the tip of your thumb by slightly touching the ridge of the bead. Four would be 4 1 beads. To represent 5, we move down the 5 bead with the index finger, which makes the 5 bead assume its value. Since we already have 4 1 beads set below, we need to move them down with the index finger to remove their values. With the 5 bead set, we move 1 bead up to represent 6. Same with 7, 5 bead and 2 1 beads. 8 would be 5 bead and 3 1 beads. 9. For the 10, we use the first rod to the left of our unit rod. A single 1 bead on the first rod to the left represents the value 10. Therefore, we need to remove the values already set on the unit rod. We move down the 4 1 beads with the index finger, followed by moving up the 5 bead to remove its value with the same index finger, and finally setting the 1 bead on the left. Once we get to 10, it's easy to see that each of the rods can represent a single digit from 0 to 9, making it possible to set a given number on a soroban using our familiar decimal system. Armed with the proper finger technique on a soroban, let's tackle some arithmetic problem in the next video.